Hey guys and girls, it is Birchy here for Tuesday Night Lives. Didn't adjust my camera correctly. What's going on? Here we are. Hope everyone's having an awesome week and been taking advantage of the opportunities that are out there. Just wait for you guys to hop online as we get started with this week's chats. I'm going to keep tonight's one at a short, concise. I've been told, Nathan, we want to do 20-minute videos. We want to keep everyone not dragged out for 2 hours, which I love talking. I love throwing around stats and figures. Unfortunately, tonight I've only been given 2 articles to talk with you guys about, and I'm going to hop straight into it. I'm going to look at these articles and talk about why I think now is a great time to be buying, and who the winners are in this market, who the losers are, and make sure you're on the right side of the equation. So first one here is just a little article here from our friends over at CNBC, Communist News Broadcasting, whatever it stands for. So this article here says, Australian risks recession and housing downturn after third rate hike. Wow, we've been talking about this before we even got our first rate hike, right? The key points here says the negative impact of interest rate rises on Australian house prices, household spending and volume of dwelling investments may hurt consumer confidence and fuel the likelihood of a recession in Australia, analysts and economists say. But a forecast for price falls of up to 20% is still smaller than nearly 40% increase in house prices since 2019. Auction rates, dwelling investments and housing affordability are expecting to slide. That's really funny what they said in there, right? So firstly, I printed out about 50 news articles, right? And I was told, Nathan, you cannot put 50 news articles into your Tuesday Night Live. So be prepared. What's this week now? Next Tuesday, I'm going to come to you with 50 news articles, right? Maybe not. Maybe it's 20, maybe it's 10, maybe it's 30, whatever. It's a lot of news articles. And I'm going to be looking at the news headlines over the course of the last decade, right? Because I've seen all these headlines, 40%. Who remembers when the house prices were meant to drop by 40% back in 2020, right? House prices are going to fall, the market's going to crash, whatever, right? It made perfectly sense, but never happened because they manipulated the shit out of that market. So here we are. The news is all out there saying house prices are falling. Auction rates are definitely falling. Housing affordability is expected to slide. So if housing affordability is expected to slide, that means it's going to become more unaffordable to have a dwelling. Why would it become more unaffordable if prices were going to slide? And it comes down to the cash flow of things. So it all has a link in. So I think the greatest takeaway from this worthless article from these propaganda outlets is if you're a seller, you're going to find it difficult to sell for a premium price in the current market. If you're a buyer, it is the time you've been waiting for. I see people out there and they're so scared. They're like, Nathan, the market is very, it's a good time to be selling or whatever. It's like, no, the good time to be selling when the market was at an all-time high. Not now that, these things are sort of happening. This is a time to be buying and taking advantage of all the people that are fearful out there. So people go, people that are watching this stuff, 90% or 95% of the world is reading these things. And they're like, oh, wow, house price is going to fall. I better get out now. It's like, well, hey, Mr. Vendor, you're fucked. You can't get out. How about you give the property at this price? It'd be very nice about it. But, the media is out there selling that the whole world's going to cave in and all this sort of stuff. That's the opportunity for you to, capitalize upon. So if you're a buyer, good time to be buying. If you're a seller, maybe not the best time. You should have been not trying to time it like that. My second article is the most important one, and it is rents rise at the fastest rate in 14 years across Australia. I want everyone to go back a step and think about 14 years ago. What happened? We had the GFC. What else happened? We started to see interest rates being played with. So in 14 years ago, I remember the market very clearly here in Sydney. Rents were very shit for between 2003, 4, 5, 6. The lead up to the GFC, it was the rents, you'd have to offer 1 week free rent and all these sort of things. When the GFC came, you know, rent started to rise before the GFC, probably the lead up in the year before the GFC, say 2007, 2006, 2007. The rents had gone up and the rates had gone up. So when the rates rise, the rents rise. Just be mindful of that, guys. What happened when the interest rates came down in the GFC? The RBA dropped the rates from 725 basis points to 300 basis points. So it dropped by 4.25%. It's about 66%. Funny enough, it sounds like 666, but it dropped by 66% in a period of 4 to 5 months. The interest rate dropped that far. So if you think about the rents that went up, 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 and then the rates drop, boom, right? Your rents are still high, the rates have gone down, then that bit in the middle of the fat, that is what enabled me to be able to quit my job and retire from the workforce at the age of 24 in the year 2009. It is by having pushed through raising rent, raising interest rate environments. It's by collecting all of the assets. Is when those two things happen. When the rents went up, it was great, and when the rates went down, that created a buffer of, let's call it $100 a week, 20 properties. There's $2,000 a week. That is how I was able to retire in the middle of the GFC, and everyone else was scared of their job. So let's go and read into this article. I don't really trust these articles, but they're always fun to read, and I'll tell you what I'm personally seeing out there in the market today. This here is from some commie news outlet. I think it's maybe the ABC or something. Rents have risen at the fastest rate of 14 years in Australia's landlords seek to recoup the costs of facing rising interest rates and high costs. According to research firm CoreLogic's quarterly rental review, the national rental index has increased 0.9 in the month of June and 2.9% in July. The sustained period of strong rental growth has seen national dwellings record the highest annual growth in rental value since, it's chopped off the edge here. Rents are 9.1% higher across capital cities and are up 10.8% in regional areas compared with June 2021. Canberra remains contrarian market with a typical home renting for $690 per week, ahead of Sydney record median rental of $643 per week. The increase comes as the Reserve Bank increased rates for blah, blah, blah. I'll go and read the whole article, but I think we get the whole picture, right? Rents are on the rise. So just think about what happens in these markets. How can you use these markets to your advantage? Is it the time to be selling? No. Very obvious, right? Is it the time to be buying? What I'm finding is that there's two parts to the market. If you're playing around in that $1 million price range, there is a soft market there. But someone asked me the other day, Nathan, where should I invest my cash? Should I invest it into shares? Should I invest it in the crypto? Everything seems to be falling. Where should I put it? A lot of people are looking for yields. There's no yield out there. You go put the money in the bank, you're not going to get a return. Wherever the money's going, it's not giving you a return. What I'm finding is that the cheaper end, whether it's 150, 200, 250K price range, that market's still very strong because you're getting yields at 7, 8, 9, 10%. So money is finding a home out there. So, just something for foods for thought. So looking at the rental market, right? I spoke to my team beforehand. Over the weekend, we showed some properties and we had, records amount of people. I've got this property that's an absolute piece of shit, right? It's an okay property. It's fully renovated, but this property, it's only renovated because it got firebombed, right? This property literally got firebombed and insurance paid to get it fixed. This property I bought for $135,000 in one of the worst areas of Mount Druitt. It's a suburb called Tregear. I bought it, I don't know, like 10, 12, 13, 14 years ago, something like that, maybe 2005, 2008. And it was rented for $160 at the time. It went up in 2008, 2009, 2010 to $330 per week. Then the market got soft. All the boom happened with the prices between 11, 12, 13, 2015, and the rent stayed soft at $300 a week. it sort of went down at the lowest point maybe 3 years ago, and it was renting for $280 per week. And at $280 per week, I was like, shit, it used to rent out for $50 a week more, but it's just the market because it wasn't the supply and demand issue. And I look at it now, and I had a tenant in there that was in there for maybe 6 months. They moved out, and they were paying $300 a week. We put the property up, and it rented straight away for $360 a week. So it's gone up by $60. Tenant moved out. We put up to 365, I think it was, and 40 people turned up. 40. Right? I don't even want to drive into the suburb, let alone, live in the place, right? And there was a rental auction, and $400 a week rent later is what is sort of happening out there. This is happening not as an isolated incident; it's happening in a lot of areas. The markets from rentals, right? If we look at the Gold Coast, rents have gone up 80 to $110 per week on average. If we look at areas, whether it be Cairns, whether it be Townsville, whether it be Perth, there is dire rental crisis. So I think that as investors start feeling these rate hikes, that the market will be accepting them as rental repayments. There's an article that I have not got with me today, but it was an area. I've got it for my next week's live, so I will leave it for next week's live. But it's basically talking about car repayments, right? Car repayments are now in a lot of cities in America more expensive than rental repayments. So your rent is cheaper than your car repayment. So these rents have been held back for so long. What is going to happen? Right? My view is when the rates rise, the rents rise. So if you have that gap, the rates go up, the rents go up, cool. But when the rates drop, the rents still stay at that level. So that is where you as an investor is going to be able to, capitalize on that. Why is now such a good time to be buying out there? I've got some properties here that we just purchased just in the last few months. A 2-bedroom house in Western Australia, 170 grand, revalued for 213 grand. It's only up 43,000. It's only up 43,000. Rent on it $320 per week. That's like a 10% yield. A unit in WA, 80 grand, revalued for 135, rent for $300 a week. So you're getting $300 a week for an 80 grand purchase. What's going to happen to your 80 grand property? The fucking loan. What are you going to have? 100% loan on it? You probably have an 80%, but let's say you got a 100% loan. That's like 3% is 2,500 a year, and if it's at 4%, it's probably 3 grand a year, right? Who gives a shit if the interest rate goes up? It's nothing. 3-bedroom house in Queensland we just bought for 180,000, revalued for 310, rent for 390 per week. A block of 4 units in Queensland. These people were at my house recently. I know that they're going to be watching. 980,000 as a purchase price. 4 units, waterfront, in Queensland, like they're only like 10, 15, 20 years old tops. Comparable sales, like this was only 2 months ago, these guys settled. If you were to sell them off now, you'd be getting $1.5 million, renting for $1,300 per week. So $1,300 on that. These are waterfront. I can't even explain to you, right? It's not on a creek. It's not on a river. This is on the fucking ocean, right? You don't want to swim in there because you probably get eaten by a crocodile or a box jellyfish or something like that. But that's still $500,000 in sort of 2 months. In Sydney, a 2-bedroom unit, like people, this is just a bit of a different sort of scenario here. Sydney, 310 grand, revalued for 415 grand. So 105 grand increase just in a matter of 3 months. Rent on it, $300 a week, but the rent is going up to $340 per week. Queensland house, another one for 180. Very similar to the other one beforehand, 180, revalued for 280, so it's 100 grand up, and 380 per week in rent. So looking at rents, looking at deals are still out there. There's still areas in this country where you can buy properties today which are cheaper than what they were 7 years ago, cheaper than what they were 12 years ago. Of course, if you're going out there and trying to time the market, right? There's so many people that are so excited to buy at the top, but they're not excited to buy when things are on sale. So just be mindful of that. I'm excited by the higher rates, the fear, the glitch that's out there. There is people that are scared. Use it to your advantage. Take advantage of the market out there. A lot of people will be fearful throughout this period of time. How many people sit there and say, "I wish I had have bought in 2020. I wish I had have bought in 2010. I wish I had have bought in 2001 when the Y2K bug and September 11 happened." You know, how many people are sitting there going, "I wish," but this is another opportunity like that, because whilst people are focusing on the interest rates, right, and you go back to that other article where it says interest rates are causing allegedly house price crashes, right? How long is it going to take before the fear in those masses, right? Use those articles. If you guys are out there trying to negotiate on deals today, use those articles, use all that data to try and get a bargain. Because I remember buying in February 2020 and March 2020 and April 2020, everybody was shitting bricks and locking themselves in their house, not knowing what was going on, and it was a scary time because you've seen all the videos and never seen anything like this happen beforehand, and then everyone's expecting house prices to fall by 40%. But what happened is they just printed so much money, they changed monetary policy, they made it so easy, and it caused the biggest boom that we've ever seen here. So out of fear creates opportunity. A recession should be good for wealthy people and bad for poor people. Make sure that you adjust yourself, you understand where your cash flow is coming in, you understand where your capital's at, and make sure that you take, I guess, advantage of this market, because a lot of our investors, I'm loving it, right? Like, I manage your rental properties, I manage all the rents across the portfolios, and I get paid a property management fee. If I'm pushing someone's rent up by 20%, if I push everyone's rent up by 20%, then our income coming through the fees have gone up by 20%. So that's the opportunity that is out there in this current market. So as an investor, you want to be working on pushing your rents up. If you're a tenant, you want to be working out how you can build a strategy to solidify your rental repayments. If you can lock in a longer term lease, I don't see them coming down, rents coming down. It might be worthwhile looking at a 2-year lease or whatever. If you're an investor, the shorter the lease, the better it is, because you can keep pushing the rents up in the lease renewals. So yeah, with it, going to your questions, I'm trying to keep this to a 20-minute live. Thanks a lot for tuning in, everyone, but I'm just going to read through your questions. If you've got any questions, flick them through in the box. Luke said, Steve Keen predictions, is he still doing that walk? So this guy said he'll sell his house if in 2010, I think it was, and he's some professor that knows everything. He said, I'll walk across the country if the house prices don't fall in half by 40% or whatever. Frank said, hey mate, thoughts on Queensland lifting land tax? Will it affect it much? As an investor, I'm paying land tax anyway, but I think it's very important to understand that the government is out there constantly trying to put their hand in your pocket and take your money. They're trying to take your wealth. They're not there to help you. They're trying to take from you. I did look at the land tax policy. If you're an investor and you have properties in Queensland, you have properties in other state, you have to register and tell them that you own properties in other states. So it's pretty much self-admission. If someone wants to come and steal money off me, come and try and steal it, right? You've got to fight through the fence and go through the security measures to be able to take the cash. Why would you willingly hand over your capital? So just be mindful of that. A lot of this stuff is opting in and putting yourself into that system. Hey mate, cheers for your time again tonight. Do you like Townsville at the moment? I'm thinking about grabbing a few at 440 grand. Look, I buy all over the country. I have been buying in Townsville for a long time. I wouldn't be paying 440 grand for a house at all. I find a lot better value out there, but I do see value. I see value in every corner of the country. Nora, I hope you're doing well. Hope the family is well. Giuseppe, good old Tregear. Exactly, good old Tregear. Wade said, anyone else love Tuesday nights? Was thinking on my way home tonight's Birch is on tonight. Thanks a lot for tuning in. If you do like my videos, make sure that you smash the like button. you share it with your friends, share it around, make sure that we don't get censored. Dane said here, Birch, you love your work, but you've got to start throwing more items around. Next week, I will do a very... Sorry, I think I'm coming down with the flu as well. Very dry throat. Next week, I will do a very long Facebook Live session, and I will be bringing lots of articles. So be very... make sure you tune in for next Tuesday Night Live, because I will have a lot of things to throw around. So if you like me throwing things around, smash up the likes. I'll be back next Tuesday. Brock said it's timing in the market, not timing the market exactly. I'm looking at properties that I bought 2 decades ago, and people said they were shit, and they're doing great things now. So, wow, this green keeps pushing my comments back up the top. Where are we here? This is crazy. And I think, quick question. Last week you mentioned having emergency cash put away, roughly $5,000 per property. Would you personally have emergency cash in stock, or would you option keeping an offset account? I'd spread it like whether you got $5,000 in your offset account per property, or whether you got $5,000 in cash in your bank account. Do be mindful that if you are putting money in your offset account and you don't use it, the banks sometimes can see that as unused funds, and they can reduce the amount in your offset account. So just be mindful of that. Have some in your offset, have some in your cash account, so you do have access to it at any point. Vic said, hey Nathan, thoughts on when this tide may change again? You will know when we're going to see the biggest boom, when we start seeing monetary policy turn around. So they're increasing rates, they're taking liquidity out, all these certain things that are happening. You will see, as they start changing that policy, you'll start seeing that money trickle through. That's why you've got the stock market. Sorry, just reading a lot of other questions. You'll see stock markets crashing, you'll see crypto markets crashing, you'll see everything starting to crash, because they're taking the liquidity out of the system, and there's not enough money sloshing around for it to go around, so people are holding it, and the velocity is not up to where it should be. But when they start printing, so the next cycle that we go into is going to be an absolutely crazy sort of market, because as they start printing more money and they make it cheaper, they print more, and people are starting to see inflation go even crazier, they will lose control of inflation, and that will see the rents go even crazier. That'll see that your grocery bill will go up. That'll see all your electricity or your other sort of bills go up. So be very, very diligent and mindful through this market as well. Sam said, crystal ball, when can you see the rates peaking, and at what level? Once they come back down again, we are going to the moon. Exactly. So I always said that we would see rates go up possibly by 25 basis point increases. We have seen the rates go up a lot higher than that. I think that we'll see a couple more, because they will always overshoot this, but the damage that they're going to cause from the interest rates going up in this cycle is going to be so messy. All the currency out there is full of debt, all the businesses are full of debt, all the households are full of debt, no one owns their cars because they're full of debt. Everything's a financial instrument on that front. They're going to have to turn this monetary policy around, and when they do that, they're going to have to come down even lower and put out a lot more stimulus packages. So yeah. What do we got here? Pendle Hill units sub 400. Yeah, there's some value out there. 400 I think is too expensive. If I'm buying in Parramatta, I want to buy it for 350 sort of level, so you're probably 50k over at that price. But I'm buying properties literally in every suburb, in every corner of the country. Don't limit yourself to your local neighbourhood. Don't limit yourself to Sydney, Gold Coast, Brisbane. Look nationally, look in every single corner of the country, because there is opportunities out there. Craig just asked, how do I find the graphs you use on the ASX site, specifically the interest rate forecast? So that is called if you go to Google and type in ASX 30-day interbank cash rate future. If you type that into Google, you'll find a link, and you'll find that chart that I talk about in there. So what have we got here? Susie said, thoughts on the Age article today? No, you don't like the media. It's not that I don't like the media. Well, it is that I don't like the media. I've been in the media so many times. I know when they're lying, right? They try and just put publications out there with bits of information which are all bullshit fluff, sensationalized clickbait style stuff. And I know when they're lying about shit that I know very damn straight about, and no one understands that they're lying because they just buy the story, then I think and question, well, what other things don't I know about, whether it be about the health, whether it be about our environment, whether it be about the rainfall and the funny type of clouds that we see out there. That's when I start questioning everything out there. Um, Article today that the New Zealand prices haven't dropped a lot with their big rate hikes. Do you think the same will happen here? I don't see the sky crashing in, right? Like the interest rates haven't even gotten back to where they were 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. So I don't see we're going to have a massive crash. But there will be people that are fearful. There will be people that will become desperate, and that's where the opportunity of using that data, use the news articles, and try and use that for your negotiations to get properties cheaper. Um, I see the worst case is people are just fearful and they're sitting there in fear and they're not doing anything, and they're going to look back in 5 years' time and go, shit, when property prices were, whatever the case may be, whatever they are today. I see that being the biggest thing. Um, Josh asked, are you investing in the stock market at the moment or just property stock, not good investment? I don't say it's a bad investment, but I don't own it. If I was going to buy shares, I'd be buying my own businesses, and that's what I do when I invest in the business. I invest in the people I can control with physical assets and not paper assets that can be controlled, manipulated, and whatnot. So I'm not currently invested in the stock market at all. When the time comes, I may buy some shares, but I just don't see value out there, so I'm not buying at this point in time. Johnny, these times are awesome. Keep giving myself pay rises through rent increases. Exactly. If you've got 10 properties and you put your rent up by $50, that's $500 a week extra income. If you've got 100 properties and you put your rent up by $100, that's 10 grand a week. That's $500,000 a year. So, yeah. My income keeps going up, right? Yes, my expenses have gone up, but the rents will go up, the rates will go up, so it'll neutralize each other. But when the rates come down, the rents don't come down. So that's where the gap of extra spread comes. So bring on the fear, bring on all this. A lot of people will be hurt. And, you've got to try and navigate yourself through to capitalize on the opportunity. Andrew said, your thoughts on how often you should try to refinance on each property you have, both personal mortgage and self-managed super fund loans. I think you should review it at least once a year to see if there's any equity that you've got, whether you've got, it depends on the size of your portfolio. You've got one property and you go and refinance it or try and pull out your equity, like you've only got that one hook in the ocean. If you've got 10 properties, you go, okay, I'll go get these two properties to start off with, and then you get the equity out. You might go back in 6 months' time and go get the other property. So, yeah, I wouldn't be refinancing them every month, but if you can, see if there's opportunities there, then go and take advantage of them. What's this here? Nathan Exception on increasing rents and making money fixed to 2024. That is the opportunity there, folks. Increase those rents. The rates go up, the rents go up. It's not the sky crashing. If you're a tenant, then that would be an issue. Work out a plan on how you can fix your household budget. I understand a lot of my investors, a lot of investors out there do rent the house that they live in, and they do buy the investment properties that they rent out themselves. So it would once again neutralize itself. We are having a crash of a currency happening right now. There's going to be stages where there's explosions happening over here, and food prices are going up over there, and everything's sort of catching up. When you've got a house rental income for the roof over your head at a cheaper price than what it is for your car repayment, then you know that something's really fucked up. What's going to blow up? The currency is what's inevitably going to blow up and implode on itself. So, yeah, just my views. Those views never change. They just continue to evolve as the data comes through. And the data is evident, right? As I said, there's lots and lots of tenant inquiries, lots and lots of open homes going on. Like, I manage thousands of properties all around the country. I've got real estate offices and staff in all different pockets of the country. And this data is real data that's happening out there. It's not reported by some commie sitting there on 30 grand a year writing an article saying, hey, this is what's happening, that has no idea about rentals or real estate or sales or interest rates or economy or how financial markets work. These are real data that's coming through from the market. So On that note, I just got one more question here. I'm going to read through it and answer it. Do you think there would be value in refinancing in the next 12 months given the situation the market is facing, or would you recommend waiting until rates come down? Depends on that question. So, Mally, what I would look at is, have you got equity in this market? I would be trying to get whatever equity I can. If your property is worth 500 and you've got a loan at 200 or whatever the case may be, if the market falls from 500 to 400, or the bank only wants to value it at 450, or whatever the case may be, you want to get the maximum amount of equity out. And even if you don't go and use it, at least have access to the equity whilst you can get access to it. So I would be trying to pull out whatever equity I could, and having that as capital is like bullets in the gun. So you can go and pull the trigger and be able to take advantage of the opportunities that do face the market. So that's my view on it. Craig said, could you do a for dummies session for the real beginner to ask stupid questions all night? That's a good idea, Craig. So how about we do this? For you guys that are watching in 2 weeks' time, so not this next Tuesday, I'm going to do all my Facebook Live with all the media sort of articles. I want to read through them so we can get a real understanding of what bullshit's been talked about for the last decade or 2 decades. The week after that, I'll do a question for dummies session. So think about all the questions you've got, put them all together. I will do nothing apart from answer all the questions that you're putting through into the comment section. So that will be the comments that will come through that I'll be reading. I know that this is broadcasted on Zinger Finance. It's on the Be Decentralized page and all that. I will be reading the comments from the B.Invested.com.au Facebook page. So I'll do that in 2 Tuesdays' time. Your thoughts on desktop valuations? I know desktop tends to be higher than physical evaluation. Sometimes it's higher with the desktop, sometimes it's higher with the physical, depending on the data that's being pulled, depending on the attributes that your property has compared to the other properties around the market. There is varying. So it's important that you have an understanding, looking at real data, and then overlaying that with the desktop valuation and other sales and other properties that are currently in the market out there. So on that note, guys, I'm going to end that as a half an hour session today. Wanted to keep it short and concise. As a recap, the media is saying house prices are falling. In some areas they are, some areas they're not. I've lost like over a dozen properties so far this week. It's only Tuesday from other people out there in the marketplace paying more money for properties than what I am. So that shows the pent-up demand. There's still a lot of activity and the prices are rising in those markets. In a lot of markets, there is no buyers out there. Ultimately, that will trickle down. There'll be people in distress that will relay into that sort of market segment. I said beforehand, in that segment between $1 million to $1.8 million, it's a very good lending area where people are buying principal places of residences. That market will be the most impacted if we see price falls. I've been talking to agents about cheap little units in Sydney and stuff that I'm picking up for 300 grand. They're like, that market's increasing. So 3 months ago, what units were selling for to what they're selling for now, the price of those units have gone up probably 20, 30 grand, maybe 10% over a period of 3 months, 6 months. So, be understanding that there is markets within markets. We haven't just seen every market in Australia increase, so we're not going to see every single market decrease. But do remember that as interest rates rise, rents are rising also. That is the opportunity. That is the opportunity that has led me in 2009. I was buying properties in 2003, 2004, 2005, 6, 7, and 8. Interest rates were rising consecutively from 2004, 5, 6, and 7. And that's how interest rates got to like 8, 9% at the bank. The reason why I took such an interest in understanding how interest rates work is because I fixed an interest rate at 9% for 5 years because I was stupid and I didn't understand anything and I got caught up in fear. But in that period of time, the rents had risen up with the interest rates, right? 2007, 8, 9, interest rates went up. So rates went up, interest rates went up, rents went up, interest rates went up. But as the interest rates fell, the rent stayed high, and that spread, say $100 a week, $50 a week, times it by 20 properties. That's what gave me the income to tell my boss where to go, stick the middle finger up, and quit my job and retire at the age of 24 in the middle of the GFC. Most people worried about their job. I was just thinking about cash flow and all that sort of stuff. So what are you going to be looking back in 12 months from now? What are you going to be looking back at 2 years from now, 3 years from now? Yes, there's fear out there, but there's fear that's been out there every day in the news that you read it. So be diligent. Make sure that if you do own properties, make sure that you are pushing your rents up on those properties. Make sure that you're collecting all the cash flow. It is a very exciting time. As I said, if I just put 100 rents up by $100, that's 10 grand a week. That's significant income. That's $500,000 a year for doing nothing apart from sending a few emails. So if you need help on managing your properties or getting you the highest rent, send us a message. Send us where your properties are at. Reach out to your investor relation manager at admin@B.Invested.com.au. We can put you in contact with your local property manager to make sure that we're getting the highest rent and pushing up that cash flow. It really, all it takes, right? Just think about this. If you've got 10 properties already, you've got 15 properties already, whatever. All it takes is for rents to rise, right? $100 or $50, and the interest rates to fall $50. That's enough money. I've got a fruit fly here. Don't know where it came from. All it takes is that gap to be able to make you retire, right? And that's what happened to me back in 2009. On that note, leave with you guys. Thanks a lot for tuning in. I'll be back next Tuesday with a very long Facebook Live, throwing around lots of news articles. And the following Tuesday night, I'll be talking about questions and answers for dummies. So if you've got whatever question, no matter how wise, no matter how dumb it is, come on, we'll read out those questions. I'll answer them, and I'll give you an hour or so of that. Thanks for watching. We'll catch up soon, guys. Bye for now.